So it turns out that there are not just 4 Twilight books. Well, okay, there are 4 books, but it turns out there's a 5th. A novella. A tie-in novella to Eclipse focused on an insignificant character you only see for 5 minutes and has little to no bearing on the plot. Just when you thought the series couldn't get more pointless. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, my name is David Popovich, aka the Bookworm, and welcome to Bookworm Reviews. Sit back and relax as we dive into The Short Second Life of Bree, the 3.5 book of the Twilight Saga by Stephanie Myers. So upon learning that there was a 5th book, I had to ask, why was this written? Well, thankfully, Stephanie explains to us in a nifty little intro. No 2 writers go about things in exactly the same way. Yeah. When I was writing the first draft of Eclipse, I had first-person perspective blinders on. Anything that Bella couldn't see, or hear, or feel, or touch was irrelevant. That story was her experience alone. Which is why Eclipse is one of the emptiest books I've read. She goes on to explain that while editing Eclipse, she started to come up with Bree's backstory, but instead of including her story in Eclipse, she wrote it separately. 1, to expand upon the series lore. 2, to look at the story from another perspective. And 3, to be a total cash grab. Gotta make that money, son! She's such a small, seemingly trivial character in Eclipse. Very true. And yet her story is so important to an understanding of the novel. No, she is not. I hope you end up caring about Bree as much as I do, though that's kind of a cruel wish. Yeah, cause you know I'm going to tear this book a new one. Alright, enough backstory. Who is Bree Tanner? Bree is a newborn vampire, living with 20 others just like her under the rule of Riley and the mysterious Her, who's actually Victoria, but they don't know that and it's a secret. Shh. Under Riley, he tells them the basic rules about vampires, like staying out of the sun, and wooden stakes will kill you. The only things they are ever told is to feed and not get caught. Bree is out hunting with several others when they run into Riley's right-hand man, Diego. The other newborns are unruly and only care about causing mayhem. Bree escapes with Diego, and the 2 hunt together. Strangely, Diego is different from the other newborns. Weird. Diego was weird. How he sounded like a person having a regular old conversation. No hostility, no suspicion. Like he wasn't thinking about how easy or hard it might be to kill me right now. He was just talking to me. Then they find their prey, and for the first time ever, we see how Twilight vampires attack like real vampires. I turned off my brain. It was time to hunt. I took a deep breath, drawing in the scent of the blood inside the humans below. Oh, this is going to be good! She opened her mouth to scream, but my teeth crushed her windpipe before a sound could come out. There was just the gurgle of air and blood in her lungs, and the low moans I could not control. Jesus! As the night continues, the 2 start to talk more and slowly become friends. What? He couldn't answer me for a minute. Finally, he blurted out. Worst high five ever! I sniffed, irritated. Couldn't be sure you weren't just going to rip my arm off or something. Diego snorted. I wouldn't do that. Anyone else would, I countered. True that, he agreed, suddenly not as amused. You up for a little more hunting? Do you have to ask? Oh my god, I think I'm starting to like them. What are you doing to me? The more they talk, the more they start to poke holes into Riley's logic about vampires, how he treats them, how he raises them, and why he chooses the people he chooses. And slowly, the pieces start to come together. So Riley doesn't need brains, I reasoned. He needs numbers. Diego pursed his lips, considering. Like chess, he's not making knights and bishops. We're just pawns, I realized. Soon they discover that Riley has been feeding them lies about what they can do and why they are there. But does he know? Is Riley just as clueless as them? Why were they created then? Who is this Her? And what will they do? once they learn the truth. Well, that's actually interesting. The characters are likable, the setting is perfect, and there's some serious intrigue learning more about these newborns. Whoa. And not a single hint of Myers forced romance! Diego grinned at me, his face beautiful with light. And suddenly, with a deep lurch in my stomach, I realized that the whole BFF thing was way off the mark. For me anyway. It was just that fast. Oh. There it is. The best way I can describe the short second life of Bree Tanner is that it's honestly my favorite of the Twilight books, but it's ruined by its connection to Twilight. I mean, just right off the bat, Bree is such a more interesting character. She's a runaway who got dragged into becoming a vampire and is forced to survive not only by feeding, but also from other newborns ready to kill her in a moment's notice. Admit it, she's more engaging than Bella and you'll attach to her in a fraction of the time. Then you also meet Diego, who does have some general blandness. He is at least more charming over Edward's creepy. And while it does devolve into Myers standard romance, the chemistry between the two is not only fun, but also you could see the two getting together. If the story actually took the time to develop. The biggest problem with the book is that it has the meat to be a novel. The main story is about the two learning that things are not what they are told, and it expands the lore of the world in the right ways. Not only seeing the world from a vampire's point of view, but also a look into the structure of vampire life. Not to mention, if you read Eclipse, you already know how the story ends, which does ruin some of the twists, but it also sets up a ticking time bomb as you wait to see the plots collide and meet their tragic end. There is a lot in the novella that can easily fill a novel. But it's a novella, which means most of the interesting stuff gets passed by, and what you get in the end is a hollow book. Since we already know how the characters end, we don't get surprised when we learn certain revelations. While others are just simply obvious, you can see it coming in space! And for a huge cast, there are again a bunch of one-note jokes to fill space. And like Eclipse, the second half of the book is empty. Which only makes me ask the bigger question, why wasn't this included with Eclipse? Because Eclipse is Bella's story? Then why was the last chapter from Jacob's perspective? Hell, if the two were together, it would have filled in the gaps better while actually keeping your attention, because let's be serious here, people, there is a lot of nothing going on in Eclipse, and you know it. Hell, what does this story by itself add to the overall saga? That the Volturi are evil? You don't say! Instead, what we get are two halves that never make a whole, leaving you empty and disappointed because there is so much potential and it's all wasted. I recommend it for some to check out just to see what happens when Stephanie sets up an interesting story that can actually have some dramatic weight, only to see it crash and burn in the end. In other words, it's a Twilight book. What else would you expect? What about you, Internet? What's your opinion about the short second life of Bree Tanner? If you have a book you would like me to review, let me know in the comments below. You know what? Screw it. I am not waiting several months. We're going to put this series to rest next week. Till next time, have a nice day.